Hello, this is Ron Stallworth calling. Who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God. Last time I checked. What can I do you for?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews, Mexicans and Irish, Italians and Chinese. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those black rats. And anyone else, really, that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I'm happy to be talking to a true white American.
That's a clip from the new Spike Lee film coming out today called Black Klansman. It stars John David Washington playing a cop trying to take down the KKK with his partner played by Adam Driver.
But before there was Moonlight, Get Out, and Black Panther, a black actor taking the lead in a film used to be very rare in Hollywood. And even then, barely got any play.
To this day, Hollywood is having a hard time diversifying itself.
What's up? I never yielded! And as you can see, I am not dead!
Representation matters.
Get out! Yo! Shoot it! Get out! Get out!
We hear it all the time, but what does it really mean or look like? In an ad campaign, Netflix says when it comes to black leading actors, directors, writers, and producers, they are representing. And it's not a moment, it's a movement. Famous directors Ava DuVernay and Spike Lee help introduce the streaming services initiative called Strong Black Lead.
We're not a genre because there's no one way to be black.
It's a promise to represent black audiences authentically, which hasn't always been Hollywood's priority.
Mommy, here's for Scarlett's Vickles. You can take that all back to the kitchen. I won't need to buy it.
Oh, yes, you is. You's going to eat every mouthful of this.
Early pictures of black people in entertainment included criminals, slaves, nannies, servants, blackface, or just plain ignorance. But from the mid-1910s to the 1930s, Duke University says some film companies had a sort of revelation, if you will. They dedicated themselves to creating productions with, quote, all-colored casts. They promised to write positive, diverse roles. After many black people moved from the South to urban areas, Hollywood seemed to be adjusting to the country's changes. In fact, what was called the race movie genre only displayed black people in a positive light. But eventually, the idea of black people in those roles was no longer marketable. Duke says an all-black production company failed because of the lack of commercial appeal to broader, aka white, audiences.
There are a lot of people who live in your neighborhood who choose not to get on that bus. What do they choose to do? They choose to go out and sell drugs. They choose to go out and kill people. They choose to do a lot of other things, but they choose not to get on that bus.
Commercial appeal like the infamous white savior complex. Teen Vogue defining it as movies that promote colonialism in a sense, because people of color need white people to save them. They called it Oscar bait, which brings me to my next point.
But I think it sucks that if black people want Academy Awards, we can't just make movies about anything but slavery.
No. We can make any movie we want. We just have to trick white people into thinking the movie is about slavery.
Cue the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite in 2016. For the second year in a row, USA Today reported all 20 actors nominated for a lead or supporting acting Oscar, they were white. And black actors weren't having it.
We no longer need to ask to be invited anywhere.
Some boycotted the award show and demanded change. The Academy promised to diversify in race and gender by 2020. We can't talk about representation without taking a trip to Wakanda. Black Panther was proof diversity sells. Forbes said it made $700 million nationally, more than $1 billion worldwide. It seems Black Hollywood is hopeful Netflix can represent for Black people alongside other big dogs in the industry working to do the same. So let's hope this trend can and will eventually turn into a way of life.
Let everybody know, and suckers be warned, that this is the outcome when you mess with bullhorn.
Did you take a shot of vibranium before you wrote that?
That was
good.
Bullhorn. Thank you.
A great piece.
Props to Julian, who is my partner in crime on that. But so we think we have a broad idea usually of how this thing goes. That obviously early depictions were in a box, not cute, and now they're getting better. But what I didn't realize is that people have been trying forever to do better, and it just doesn't work usually. It's kind of like, we want to do this, but we have to appeal to white people too, and that doesn't always help.
You got to appreciate the digital age for that. It's giving more people
So
more
true.
platforms.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you mentioned in your story the Oscars So White hashtag that happened the other year. So the Academy Awards are being hit again with controversy surrounding diversity. It just announced it would be adding a popular film category, basically their version of a People's Choice. The Academy claims it's to highlight movies that may not have otherwise been nominated for an Oscar. But that's not how people are seeing it. Several critics claim it's the group's way of covering up for keeping films like Black Panther from being in the Best Motion Picture category. Critics also say the Academy created the category to boost ratings.
That might be true. I was trying to figure out how to be like better about it.
I think of like the prestige that comes with the Academy, and like that's why it's not the People's Choice Awards. And like when it comes to like popularity in the digital era, clearly, I think we all know. You just got to open up Instagram to know that the most followed and most popular people don't necessarily have the best things to say or deserve an award, but they're still selling you fit tea anyway. I don't know.
This just took a turn
I'll
to
get
the
off.
left, so I'll go back this way.
Soapbox, yeah.
So I talked to film critic Okima Gunn about Black actors in early Hollywood. She told me about how there were some actors who tried to shift the dynamic in film, as we talked about, but sadly were not allowed. When you think about, and I think every Black person would answer this differently, but when you think about early depictions of Black people in film, what comes to your mind? What kind of characters or movies?
When I think about early characters in Black cinema, from the history, I know of Hattie McDaniels from Gone with the Wind, and I think of also Bill Robinson, that played Bojangles in Little Colonel with Shirley Temple. So those early depictions were kind of, from my knowledge, were played as maids and butlers and things of that nature. And so it's not really their fault that they had to play those characters, because that was the only thing that was available at that time. There was a director, however, which is they kind of call him like the father of Black cinema, because he was like he wasn't the first, but he was one of the first producers and directors and writers to actually make a film, and it was Oscar Micheaux.
What do you think that says about how Hollywood and I guess the country viewed Black people at that time?
You still had sharecroppers during that time. So we were not that far removed from slavery and sharecropping, and some of us were still sharecropping. We didn't own homes, and so I believe that the country still viewed us as, a half step away from slavery.
You were talking about that director who was trying to kind of make a shift, and then we talk about 2018 with the Strong Black Lead campaign. Why are things like that, actual shifts that we can see that have a date on them, why are they necessary and important?
Well, I believe that the Strong Black Leader initiative, the Strong Black Lead initiative, those things are milestones for us. And that picture was based on a photo from the 1940s, where they did have when they did have some Black leads and Black characters that were starting to emerge in Black Hollywood. So I believe that they wanted to kind of recreate or have a resurgence of that movement, so to show our community and people of color that we can be leading characters, that we can be creative, and we can have strong and lasting content that will change the world and change the whole perspective of how the world sees us. I believe that this is the time to really voice our opinion and really show these Black perspectives, because they are sought in Hollywood, especially at this point.
I think the elephant in the room on this that she was talking about with the half step away from slavery is what's being put on TV and in film is kind of like what the minds of the majority feel about Black people historically.
As opposed to the minds of actual Black people.
Exactly. So that's kind of like this film thing is just projecting what's really happening in America. So,
and what I do appreciate about this era we're in now is that if you are curious and you have that desire to learn about people who are not like you, it's out there.
Yeah, very Googleable.
It's very Googleable, and you have access to it. You just gotta want it. You do.
You wanted to get to know me. No, I'm kidding. I just like to show you affection.